old is the new young? Well, let me explain. Hello and welcome. I'm Sadhika Tiwari and you're watching Eco India. From flea market fashion to refurbished phones and upcycled home decor, reusing, repairing, recycling and upcycling are the words that we hear quite a lot of, and they're also one of my favorite trends. And they should be yours too, because not only are they good for your pocket, they're also great for the planet. E-waste is growing phenomenally in India, and I think it's time that we reconsidered our consumption patterns. Should you be buying a new phone or repairing your old one? Or maybe buying a refurbished phone a better idea? And what is the right to repair? You will find answers to these questions and learn a little about an old trick that India is using in new ways to deal with its massive problem of e-waste in this next report by Aditi Rajagopal.
I'm in a place that big tech companies would rather didn't exist.
It's a Sunday evening and this market in North Delhi is buzzing.
Last year, 1.39 billion mobile phones were sold globally, and over 5 billion mobiles were estimated to be thrown away. But right here could be a solution for much of this waste. I'm in a North Indian market and there's really nothing you can't get here.
You don't really see places like this anymore where people are just using whatever they have around them to fix what's broken.
Because changes in the way products are made is changing this market and others like it.
पहले iPhone 4 था, 5 हो गया, 6 हो गया, 7 हो गया, 8 हो गया, 10 हो गया, 11 हो गया. उस हिसाब से बंदे यूज करते रहते हैं फोन.
And because people are choosing to buy new rather than repair, e-waste now makes up the majority of our overall toxic waste. And it's happening all over the world. So many people are now working to bring this repair mindset back.
India wants to retain this ingenuity and the culture of fixing what's broken while also keeping its economy strong. I'm here in Delhi, the repair capital, to figure out how all of this is going to play out. I've had my phone for 4.5 years now, which is a relatively very long time to own a smartphone. I'm in a challenge with myself to see how much longer I can make it last. But I've also been very careless and completely ruined my display. But I looked it up and it costs 30,000 rupees to buy a new phone of the same model. So I'm here to see whether it's worth getting it repaired instead.
इसका लगेगा 12,000 रुपये खर्चा है.
12,000. I'm just not sure whether it's worth paying a third rather than getting a new phone with a new battery and more memory.
The showroom quoted 16,000 rupees, which is more than half the price of the phone, so I'm not going there. I'm going to get a few more quotes from a different place. This is an informal and semi-formal electronics market. This is a grey area. Some vendors may be authorized dealers, others may not be registered, and not all of them pay taxes.
कैसा start किया आपने ये काम?
देख के सिखाओ.
They told me they can offer cheaper services by cutting deals over or under the table, or find some workaround or the other.
ओरिजिनल इसकी मैम 12,000 रुपये बोली, कॉपी 7,000.
7,000. और ये कॉपी मतलब कॉपी स्क्रीन कुछ गारंटी के साथ आती है कि नहीं?
ओरिजिनल भी गारंटी के साथ नहीं आएगी.
नहीं आएगी. It's quite interesting that everybody has quoted me a different figure, which means that, of course, there's no standard and you have to haggle and you have to find the best price, which does take a lot of time. And I still want to think about it more.
India has a long history of repairing over replacing. Most street corners once had a cobbler or a tailor who fixed saris that stayed in families for many generations. But it gets more niche. This tradesman specializes in only fixing zips. The economic boom of the 1990s and 2000s changed this culture completely. With more money in their pockets and things getting cheaper, people started buying more. And something else happened. India went ultra digital. Every kind of payment is now done online, from rickshaws to coconut water. Having a phone is now basically mandatory.
Phones in India are so cheap and accessible that there are more people with phones than beds or mattresses or chairs.
Electronic devices, though, became an outlier to the old Indian repair culture, mainly because electronics companies don't allow for repair. Gadgets have been accused of being designed for the dump. It's called planned obsolescence, and companies have been taken to court over it. For example, this year, Apple is preparing to pay up to $500 million in the US in settlements in a case accusing them of slowing down older iPhones. The Italian government fined Samsung 5 million euros in a similar case that found that updates slowed down devices. As a result of all this, e-waste has grown phenomenally in India, and many countries have had similar results in their stories of development and affluence. Very little of this waste is formally recycled.
This is where electronics come to die. This is the biggest electronics waste market in the country.
Truckloads of discarded electronics come here every day and are dumped onto local traders. These people separate them and sell parts on to recyclers or other kinds of scrap dealers. There's literally e-waste everywhere.
Look at that.
Here, traders break down the tech to recover anything of value. The results of this kind of informal dumping are made obvious by what's meant to be a storm drain. But there's no space for water to flow. We saw a lot of people, including and especially children, collecting anything of value. And this scavenging comes at a high price. The lead, cadmium, or beryllium in e-waste has been known to cause skin conditions in the first instance, but it's also been linked to problems with the liver and development of the brain, including in newborns. It was very hard to film here, and nobody really wanted to talk to me on camera. I met Satish Sinha, a researcher of chemical pollution, to ask what needs to happen to stop this.
So both on the production side and on consumption side, you'll have to make a lot of adjustments. On the production side, I can say that how do you design products better? Suppose you can design a product which is modular in nature, because today you're discarding a product because you cannot take it to the next level. Second thing is about lowering consumption is also because if you design products bigger, if it lasts with me for longer time, I am not likely to discard it. So my waste generation reduces. Third thing is about we need to formalize repairs, we need to formalize refurbishments, and by law also they are permitted. It's only that how do we encourage this? I think that we have not been able to break through.
This third thing is something the government is starting to work on. It launched a portal in 2023 to ensure its citizens have the right to repair. Around 50 companies have signed up so far, on paper. These include manufacturers of farm equipment, consumer durables, and automobiles, as well as electronics. I met the man in charge, Rohit Kumar Singh, the highest-ranking administrative officer at the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, who went over the main points.
In case the product requires repair or a routine maintenance, it shouldn't be expensive, it should be easily accessible, and it should be readily available in the ecosystem of the consumer. So we put all that together and we are doing the right to repair framework.
More specifically, this would include access to information on how to repair, providing cheap and original spare parts to consumers and third parties. And it also includes more specific calls to action, like that all chargers must be USB-C by June 2025.
We don't want to become an impediment in the ease of doing business also. Right. It's a very tricky thing. Yeah. So on the one hand, you want more business in India, you want economy to grow, you want more FDI. Yeah. So you want to make things simple and streamlined, but you also have to protect the consumer, protect the planet, and these things can be competing.
Right now, there's one main problem. This framework is voluntary. It hasn't been tabled or passed as a bill in Parliament, and that...
It can be a long process.
This is Zongwei Dunia, a professor of law at Alliance University in Bangalore, who has looked into where India is at with the right to repair.
But it's possible that the parliament also won't pass it, right?
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible because remember that we are talking about also the interest of let's say, producer groups that are quite powerful. In India, there was a case that was decided in the mid-2010s, the Kataria case.
In this case, a lawyer named Shamsher Kataria took 14 car manufacturers to court, which only allowed for repairs in exclusive repair shops. He argued that these manufacturers monopolized the spare parts market and were abusing this dominance, sometimes marking up the price of spare parts 5,000%. The manufacturers fought back.
And the argument was that, well, that if we allow, let's say, if we give certain tools to consumers, or if we allow many more people to repair those cars or those consumer goods, it's going to infringe our intellectual property rights.
In that case, the court decided against them, mandating that they allow consumers to go wherever they choose based on what they can access and afford.
The problem that if you have markets where intellectual property are not respected, you may discourage investment into that industry. For example, the firms that produce those electronic goods may have a disincentive to enter the market. They may actually leave the market because they will say, well, but then we are losing the incentive to innovate because our intellectual property right is not protected because of the right to repair.
There has already been pushback, even against the simple USB-C charger rule. Apple in India has asked for an exemption or a delay, saying it would otherwise struggle to meet production targets. But there are economic arguments for repair too. At the moment, most of the material that goes into making electronics remains unaccounted for. These include important resources like lithium, which we will need a lot more of in the future. So these are of huge national value. Many countries are pushing ahead on this. In early 2024, the European Parliament took a leap forward and voted strongly in favor of strengthening the right to repair in all 27 countries of the EU. Some are even handing out repair vouchers paid for by national repair funds. France has set up what might become a norm across many products, a repairability index, much like the one that shows you the energy efficiency of, say, a refrigerator, to give the consumer more agency. The US is not far behind, and such decisions will have impacts on countries like India and beyond.
Some of the products, they have these global supply chains. So they manufacture for the world. So the world has to be on the same page, which is a difficult task to achieve. But then we also engage with EU, and they are doing from a specific date, they are making it mandatory. So we said, okay, EU plus 6 months.
There's estimated to be a $20 billion domestic market for repair and a $5 billion domestic market for refurbishment in India. So startups are jumping in by setting up repair and refurbishment units. CTDI in Bangalore and Gadgetwood in Noida are examples, both with huge foreign investments.
It's a win-win-win proposition for the consumer, for the guy who's working and gets an employment, and the company. It expands their repair network. The consumer gets benefit because it's cheaper and it's accessible. And the guy is able to make a living.
But this all still exists in pockets in very early stages. The big challenge is the hundreds of thousands of people whose livelihood depends on repair. Formalizing such a massive informal economy, developing skills, registering and ensuring they pay tax is not going to be an easy task, even if the government says the intention is there. It's also going to be a challenge to keep accounts of all these resources, but that is the hope.
I think I've decided not to change the display of my phone because it's about a third of the cost of buying a new phone itself, which is just too expensive, especially considering I don't have a guarantee that the new display will last for a long enough time to make the investment worth it. So I think I'm just going to wait for my phone to die and buy a new one. But if and when the right to repair does come into play, my decision might be quite different.
Developing countries like India have a unique opportunity to still tap into their cultures of reuse and repair and retain them for a more sustainable and equitable future.
There are more vehicles on our roads than ever before. And this means that the tire manufacturing industry is growing rapidly. And that means that more and more tires are ending up in our landfills. And not just our own, but also other countries are exporting their discarded tires to our country. And dealing with them is a major challenge because not only are they non-biodegradable, but they're also very, very hard to recycle. So is there any technology that can help us with this problem or a cleaner way of tackling all of this? Let's find out.
Israel Samnani has no shortage of clients right now. His company, based not far from Mumbai, specializes in recycling old tires. He started out in the business 4 decades ago.
We are into truck tires, so the transport companies are the first choice. The second one is the tire fitters, which are known as pancharwalas. So we go and source tires from them.
The amount of waste tires processed by Ismail's team has almost doubled over the past 5 years. His main customers are reclaimer companies. Just like the booming car market, tire recycling is a growing business in India. Last year alone, it gave new life to some 1.5 million old tires, industry experts say. But it could be more. The majority still end up in refuse dumps.
In order to have safe disposal strategies come up from the government or from the industry side, it is important that we don't dump it in landfills, because that could pose problems such as the infestation of the pests onto the tires, or even if you incinerate, the incineration of tires can actually be very detrimental to the environment. Because burning of tires can pollute the environment, and if you put it in landfill, that will also damage the ecosystem.
The town of Vada, 75 kilometers outside Mumbai, is home to one of India's leading tire recyclers. The company uses the waste material to produce a material used as asphalt reinforcement in road construction. Over the past 10 years, it has upcycled over 6 million used tires.
All the waste tires are kept in the yard down there. They are then processed through the machines. The first one is called a tire shredder. The tires are shredded first in 50 millimeter pieces before being sent through another machine called a raspa, which further reduces them to a size of 25 millimeters. These are also called tire chips.
The next step involves chopping up those chips into even smaller pieces and then packing them up for delivery. The fine granulate is later mixed with crushed stones and bitumen to create a raw material called crumb. It makes road surfaces more robust and durable.
Government policies and in fact the road engineering policy says the surface road should have a better product which should handle the good, which should survive in fact, at the higher temperature, which should survive with the water also, which can carry the higher traffic loads. So adding the crumb rubber to the bitumen overcome with its inherent weaknesses.
The material is being used in the construction of a 67-kilometer stretch of the Delhi-Jaipur highway. The contractor on the project says the modified bitumen boosts the performance of asphalt concrete.
Improves the ride quality of the road when compared to regular asphalt. It will be smoother, and the more traffic the road gets, the more it will help reduce friction of cars.
Experts say that recycling scrap tires for new roads is an environmentally friendly alternative to other second life options, such as burning them to produce industrial oil. The production of crumb rubber modified bitumen, however, is extremely energy intensive due to the high temperatures required. Still, compared to conventional asphalt, it generates considerably lower CO2 emissions. And yet, despite the positives, road construction companies in India remain reluctant to use the rubber bitumen.
I believe there is lack of education amongst the industry to use or to shred rubber into recyclable product, number one, which also means that we are not geared up to use the rubber in the right sense. Number two is There is no mandate in the standard guidelines or the specifications that you should start using recyclable products.
The government has introduced rules under which tire manufacturers and importers must recycle their products. Companies have been too slow to respond and are demanding financial support to implement the regulations. Scientists, meanwhile, point to a range of opportunities for using recycled tires.
We've also used rubber in preparing benches in parks. So if you want to prepare dikes for ports, that could be used. If you want to use it for some other purpose, I think there is umpteen number of uses of rubber in civil infrastructure.
As for where the tires are first used, it takes 15,000 scrap tires to produce crumb bitumen for 1 kilometer of road. With a network that spans 6.7 million kilometers, India's roads hold immense potential for upcycled waste tires.
Plastic is not good for our environment, and we all know it. So an environmentalist in Pondicherry decided to clean up all the beaches and rid them of all single-use plastic. But he did not stop there. He decided to turn it into something more useful and beautiful and teach others how to do the same. So a wrapper or chip does not end up on the shore, but instead it transforms into something like this.
They are eye-catching, even useful, and made totally from trash. Puducherry beach in Tamil Nadu is awash in plastic waste. Satyajit Agarwal used to handpick the rubbish and dispose it off in garbage bins, until he realized that didn't make it disappear. Today he views plastic trash as a resource, a raw material that he turns into attractive items, inspired by the years he lived and worked in Australia, where more plastic is recycled.
I spent my childhood here in Puducherry. I went to school here for 10 years. I loved the beach and I am fond of the sea. Almost every day I would come and play by the seashore. So I have lots of memories from that time. I missed Puducherry a lot, so I returned. But after I came back, I noticed lots of things weren't the same. There were piles of garbage on the seashore. I felt the urge to try to change something. Plastics, especially multi-layered plastics like potato chip bags, for example, can't be recycled. It's a huge burden on our environment.
He is now passing on his skills to people in and around Puducherry.
The plastic garbage and its problems affected him deeply, as there is no proper solution. Instead of collecting and cleaning the garbage to create craft products, it would be easier if everyone separated their trash at source. That way, we could do this artwork from home, using materials used to package milk or chips.
The objects can be sold. The environmental activist advises women about how to make money with their crafts. Upcycled items like this bag, for example, was sold at the Zero Waste Festival in Puducherry. It's a win-win situation.
I am from Panayur-Kuppam. Our livelihoods are based on the sea, but these days a lot of garbage is being washed ashore, like plastic and other trash. We had no idea of what to do about it, but now we use it to make baskets, handbags and other craft work. And then when Mr. Satyajit comes to collect the products, he pays us 200 Indian rupees for small baskets. That's more than €2. 300 rupees for big baskets, 800 for handbags and 900 for children's bags. And the important thing is, now our village is very clean. There is no plastic. When I saw those village women were making a living doing this, I got inspired to volunteer. We are all very happy about it.
Agrawal wants to spread a sense of responsibility.
From my side, step.
This is a small step from my side. If we are all determined to make some effort, we can protect our environment, beaches and nature.
Protect
The biggest threat to Earth, he says, is the belief that someone else will save it.
I am totally on board with this idea of deriving maximum value out of things, whether it is through recycling or reusing or something else. What do you think? Are there any such habits that you incorporate in your daily life? Do let me know. You can email us or reach out to me directly on my social media handles. I will see you next week. Until then, take care. Goodbye. Namaskar.